Everybody, and welcome to the Night Owl, a show that we do twice a week where we talk about all the latest in pop culture, gaming news, and TV and movie reviews. As usual, I'm here with my co-host, Professor R2. How's it going, Professor?
Going well, doing great. Happy Halloween, everybody. I forgot to put on my costume. Hold on just a minute. Here, oh, oh, no, oh, where'd it go? Oh, there
You're
we
the
go.
Invisible Man.
There we
Oh,
go.
okay.
No, yeah, there's my. You got my costume on for you. So,
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great costume. I have my
yeah,
costume on. I'm sort
yeah.
of a Dracula in space type of
Space,
dude.
space Dracula. Sure.
Space
I, I,
Dracula.
I'm certain there's several B movies that have approached that particular character. So,
Totally.
Space Dracula.
I mean, Leslie Nielsen had one that he's in space and then one that he's in Dracula, but those were two different ones, I think.
Yeah, well, maybe cut them together. You make like a rogue cut or something.
You could totally cut them together and it'll seem like one movie for sure.
Yeah, it's just be one movie. Yeah,
Totally.
Space Dracula dead, and you can't hear people when they scream. I don't know.
Dead and loving it.
I'll workshop that one.
Well, there's a lot going on, I guess. Even though today
Yeah.
is sort of more of a strange day between big rallies and Halloween.
Yeah,
Kind
it
of a
seems like a
strange
lot of
day.
the political rallies and stuff are kind of wrapping up tonight, and then they're just kind of done. They're all going to go to their corners and start like prepping for the vote turnout and stuff. It's kind of interesting. They keep talking about every all these different campaigns are making their final pitches to to people and whatnot. So, I guess we'll see. Right?
I tend to think that most people at this point already know who they want to vote for.
Yeah, you would imagine that most people have made up their minds by now. I saw some cringe-worthy shilling for some candidates today. I don't know. Did you see the video of the Avengers?
No, what was that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it's on Twitter. You have to find it. Got together all the different actors that played the
Oh,
Avengers,
Avengers for
and
Kamala or something?
yes, they were shilling for Kamala, and yeah, it's pretty cringeworthy. It's pretty bad, and yeah, they try and make a new slogan for her campaign, and they come up with Kamala is down with democracy, and then they start chanting
I
Kamala
think I
down with
found it. Yeah.
democracy.
This I can already see from the
Oh.
watching in the background here. This is complete cringe.
It's
But
horrid. My comment on the video that was shared was that it was 10% below a lethal dose of cringe, so you don't want to watch it more than once for for sure. It's pretty bad.
okay, let me try to share this. I found it on Mark
You're
Ruffalo's page, who
gonna
himself is Mr.
punish her.
Cringe himself. But
Yes.
let's try to find it. Uh, Mark Ruffalo, he's so annoying. And I feel like he's annoying because he has to be, because he's not such a great actor, and he has to overcompensate by just being overly political. It's not because he's political that I think he's just an average actor. I've always felt that way about him. I suppose that there's worse actors than him, but he is not a smart person in reality. And usually, when you see him in any movie, you kind of can look in his eyes and see that he's kind of an idiot, and that always affects the performance, in my opinion. But here's the
Yeah.
thing: can you see it?
It's not on the screen yet. I can see you're trying to share it,
Okay,
but it's
let's
not showing
see.
up. There you go.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me try to even enlarge the screen a little. Can you see? Okay, let's see what
Yes.
happens.
Hi, you guys. Hi, Avengers.
Volume down.
Hi,
Hey,
Avengers.
Scarlett.
Jumping on the call.
Whoa. I think you mean assembling. I said
Wow.
assembling. Don, that's pretty good. No, they thought it was funny.
Scarlett, it is our pleasure to come together and to get the vote out this election. Come on.
Yeah, how can we be of service?
How about we start with what our voting plans are going to be? Who are we're going to bring to the poll?
Oh no. Did we lose Price? Oh no. Well, regardless to say, this video is pretty bad. And as I
I can do
was
this all day.
Oh, there we go.
Shut
We
up.
back?
I hate it. Okay.
I mean, it's original, but
What about something punchier like, ooh, boom. You looking for this? Iron Man 2, everybody loved it.
okay. Again, I think we're just trying to get out the vote.
Kamala forever.
That's better.
Okay,
Oh.
how about
Oh,
I'm
this is
down
so
with democracy? It's just clean, it's simple.
Okay, I like that.
It's hard to argue with that.
Kamala Harris down with
Down with
democracy.
Exactly.
yeah.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I say down with democracy.
I don't know if that sounds the way we want it to sound, though.
I think we just need, can we get some production though?
Jarvis?
My name's not Jarvis, but whatever.
Oh yeah, that's right. Down with democracy.
Down with democracy.
Is that what we mean, though?
Yeah, together we're going to tear down democracy.
Will you stop playing heroic music under yourselves?
I'm Kamala Harris, and I am down with democracy. Did I sound enough like her on that one?
That was great. How many Golden Globes have you been nominated for? I'm just curious.
Yes! All right, that was awesome.
Oh man,
Not what I would call awesome. No.
that was awful. That was awful.
And the whole it's supposed to be a joke. See, we're saying down with democracy.
Man, this was so cringe. I mean, really, this was. I thought it would be bad, yet somehow it's worse than I thought it would be.
and honestly, I've said this on Twitter several times at this point. Said this on X. If your vote is going to be swayed by the endorsement of someone who is essentially a professional liar, they lie to people for a living. If your vote is going to be swayed by some celebrity, you are probably too stupid to safely vote. You might accidentally cut yourself on the ballot or stab yourself in the eye with a pen or something. Like if your vote is being swayed by a celebrity, you may have other problems beyond who you're going to vote for. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before that I personally can't stand it when they take an IP that people like and they take that IP and convert it into something to support a candidate. It's one thing if there's, let's say, a celebrity and I endorse this guy. I've never been too keen on those, but I understand the reality we live in, and you know what? You can endorse whoever you want. To make it that it's like with the Avengers and the music and the characters and the people, and they're telling you we're the Avengers, you have to vote for Kamala. That I think is already crossing a line.
It is a bit.
And that I find unacceptable. I also didn't like it. I didn't like it when they did it in 2020 when they did a big panel like this. I didn't like it when they did a different one like Star Trek into Biden or whatever it was. I don't like that stuff. I mean, the thing is that Star Trek is Star Trek. Avengers are Avengers. These are brands. These are IPs. These are properties that people enjoyed watching. They enjoyed watching them in these movies. And to then come and just say, oh, you like these movies? You like the Avengers? Well, if you like the Avengers are all voting for Kamala. I don't know. It's just there's something wrong with that. I don't feel that that's fair. It's not even that Robert Downey Jr. says, you know what, this year I've decided to vote for Kamala. That's his right. I could say that, if I like that or not, but that's his right to do that. I personally don't think any of these celebrities should really say anything, but if he insists, he can do that. Making the IP support the candidate is something that is a crossing of a line. I really want this to stop. And Hollywood, it wasn't always like that the brand would support the candidate like this. This has happened over the past,
forever. It seems like, but it's
no,
so
it used
weird.
to be that they just say which candidate they like.
Yeah,
to take
you're
the
right.
brand and to make the brand support the candidate is something that's only been around for the past maybe 5, 6, 7 years. I don't remember seeing it like that before. I don't remember seeing like a Star Trek event endorsing a candidate, an Avengers gathering of all the cast supporting a character and using the music and the sentences and basically getting into character. People were surprised when I said that I thought that Mark Hamill was a jerk for going to the White House and, saying, may the force be with you and doing all this kind of stuff, because I said he's not coming in there as Mark Hamill saying, "Hey, I'm an actor and I want to support this guy." He came in there doing like videos, for his social media or whatever it was, that's playing like the Star Wars music, quoting Star Wars, telling Biden that the Force is with him. Weird things like that I think that's already a step too far. You're not coming as a citizen, even as a public figure. You're trying to pull at people's heartstrings that maybe they like the IP, and you're trying to make them, support your cause. I guess. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a totally different thing for you as an individual, as a citizen of the United States, to step out, to go on Twitter, to go on whatever, and say, I'm supporting said candidate. That's fine. Again, I don't think anyone should take your recommendations with a grain of salt just because you're a celebrity. I don't really care what they say. They're free to do that. But to go out and use the property, to go out and use the characters to try and support a particular ideology, a particular candidate, that's wrong. Just wrong. I don't understand
I don't
why they
like
think
that
they
at
need
all.
to do that.
But at the same time, I'm also not surprised. This is actually, exactly what I expect them to do at this point. But I guess back to what I was talking about. So or in the headline here in my thumbnail, uh, Joe Biden, if he's ruined the Kamala Harris campaign. It's funny because today, I don't know if you noticed, but JD Vance was on Joe Rogan and he spoke for 3 hours. And at some point, JD Vance had some kind of comment that, one day it'll turn out that Joe Biden was actually purposely sabotaging. He said it half like jokingly, but half not jokingly, that one day it'll turn out that he was sabotaging our campaign. I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but man, that guy, he kind of proves to be a liability over and over again. I don't know if he's actually kind of annoyed that they pushed him out and brought her in, and this is his passive aggressive way of dealing with it, or he's just kind of confused and doing dumb things. It could be either or, and I'm not really sure.
Yeah. There's been so many different incidents. It seems like a pattern. After, it's like, oh, this happened one time and then it happened another time. And then there was this other time when they had conflicting announcements. And there was this other time he said this thing. And it's like, at this point, it seems like you said, like it's liability at this point. This is not a coincidence.
Right. I mean, there was the part that he put the Trump hat on his head. That was very strange.
That was so bizarre.
You don't do that. That's something that you don't do. You're not going to put on your no matter what the circumstances are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was just such a bizarre, like it was,
No matter what the
it
circumstances did that. I know he's not in the race anymore, but still. That's just something.
It felt like he didn't know where he was. I mean, it's weird. Oh no. Is Price locked up on me again?
I mean,
oh no.
He seems very confused all the time. There was also that weird thing with the baby yesterday that he was sort of. I don't understand what he was doing with that baby yesterday. Was he being playful? I feel like something's wrong either with my connection or yours. Are you there?
Yeah,
R2?
You're dropping in and out for me. Are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you now, but you were dropping in and out for me. One of us
Okay.
was dropping in and out for real, but I don't know which one it was.
Yeah.
Maybe the audience knows.
I'm kind of looking at the YouTube, but I'm seeing your video stuttering a lot. So I think that something is happening on your end.
Okay, maybe it's me. What do I know? But in any case, what I was going to say was, what happened with that baby? They let him they showed him a baby, and then he was was that like being playful? What was he doing with that baby?
I don't know about that. And I was saying with the MAGA hat, like putting that on, like I was confused. I was like, does he even know where he is right now?
He seems
Like,
confused all the
why?
time. It's not a
What
good
is
look
he?
for him.
What is he doing? Why would he do that? And then, of course, we had the yesterday's garbage comment. Oh my God. Uh,
The
ju-
garbage comment, no matter how much they try to spin that it's like a misunderstanding.
no.
I listened to the audio. The thing is, they're like, oh well, before and after he says all this nonsense, he doesn't know where he's at. I will say that the only part that's clear in his statement is that he says is that the Trump supporters is like garbage. That's what he says. I hear it very clearly. There's no other way to interpret it.
Yeah. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. He says that.
Right.
And they're trying, did you hear about the whole thing that happened earlier today, that the some of the federal workers in the White House that handled the transcripts, uh
They were trying to change the
they
transcript.
some people in the White House altered the transcript without talking to them first. Now, it's a strange alteration. It's not like they tried to completely erase what somebody said, but they tried to change what he said to say that it was an apostrophe s, supporters, as in it was his supporters who were making these un-American remarks. He wasn't saying reporters were that the supporters were garbage. Is a very, very strange alteration to try and cover this up, but we have video. You can try and say whatever you want, you can try and twist it whatever you want. We have the video. It is out there, it is available. People can watch it, they can make their own judgments. You listen to what he
They're
says.
good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American. Or Puerto Rico, or
I mean, it's pretty clear what he said. I can't really interpret it in any other way. Even with his mumbling,
Yeah.
that part is very, very clear. He seems very focused on what he's saying. He said it, and there's really no way to work around it. I think that it is
No.
what it is.
No, it's ridiculous to try and twist it to say that he said anything else other than what he said. It's I mean, obviously, there's always going to be spin. There's always going to be people trying to manipulate this stuff, but it's obvious. Anybody who listens to that knows exactly what he said and exactly what he meant, unless he really is just completely checked out and has no idea what he's saying. Like,
But I mean,
I think it's obvious that he said exactly what he meant.
and really, for a second there, even though I thought that they made a a mountain out of a molehill. What's the term I'm looking for?
Yeah, mountain out of molehill. They're making a really big deal out of
Yeah,
something.
that
that's not a
was
big
the
deal.
term. So basically, they were trying to use that whole Tony Hinchcliffe thing with his comment. Now, again, I personally have said it before. I don't think he was a good candidate for appearing at that rally. I think that rally it wasn't a stand-up comedy place, and this guy's brand of comedy may be good for some situations. I don't think for that room, for that forum for that situation, I don't think he was the best candidate. With all that being said, it was just a comedian telling jokes. He was laughing about everybody, and that's kind of what he does. I think that there's a big difference between him telling a joke that misfired and between a sitting president saying something like that about
Oh yeah,
potential
yeah.
voters. That
It was bizarre, a bizarre choice to have him. I mean, he's a well-known insult comic. That's
right. I mean,
he's
that's
a
what he
roast
does.
comic. That's what he does. So
You
he
know,
was going to come up there and he was going to roast people. Did you see any of the comments on that Joe Rogan made about him? Because he's actually close friend. Joe Rogan knows him really well.
I remember something. I watched. I think I saw some of it. But remind me, what were
So
you referring to?
he did another bit on, I think it was on Tuesday, that he did with the two guys that do the Trigonometry podcast and YouTube channel, which I love those guys. I'm not a big Joe Rogan guy, but I've been watching this show like crazy because he's had some amazing guests in the last couple of weeks. But he had those guys on and was talking to him, and they were talking about why this crazy thing that's happening. Everyone's getting upset about this, and he was saying like, I know Hinchcliffe. I've talked to him. We're good buddies, and he's told that joke before, and basically the joke is kind of informed by that he kind of learned about this Pacific garbage patch thing, right? And so he's kind of obsessed with that as like being eco-friendly and whatever. And then he also found out that the island of Puerto Rico has a huge trash problem. And if you talk to people from Puerto Rico, they'll tell you like you can go out and you can scour the beach, you can clean the beach, and come back the next day after the tide has gone out, and it's going to be like a huge pile of garbage again. Like it's a disaster. They have, it's an island, but they have a huge problem with all of the, different places that they place their garbage, like overflowing and stuff, right? So it's wild. So that's where the joke came from. But it's funny because Rogan, it was said that he's told Tony before that is the joke that's going to get you stabbed. And the idea that he would tell that joke in front of that audience at that rally was beyond. It was like, I have no idea what was going through his head and why he would tell that joke. But
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. Listen, I don't get offended, and I understand his style of humor. It's not that I'm fazed by it. I even saw something that like Jon Stewart was saying that he thinks that the guy's a comedian, should be able to tell his jokes.
yeah,
But I think that everybody would agree that brand, this guy has a very kind of pushing the envelope style of humor.
yes,
And I've said it before. Don Rickles was able to could have sold the same joke, and everybody would have been laughing their asses off. This guy has this kind of demeanor, which if you're not really on board with him and like his kind of style, I would say that he seems kind of like an acquired taste. If you're not 100% on board with that style, it may not be for everybody. Whereas Rickles could have taken the biggest insults, and somehow the way he would deliver them is that like everybody would just be laughing no matter what. And this guy doesn't have that type of vibe.
no. And they said it's funny because the trigonometry guys they were there. They were saying they were actually at the rally, and people were saying, "Oh, nobody laughed at the joke." They were like, "Yeah, people laughed. There were people laughing at the joke." No, I mean,
No, I
it
heard
wasn't.
I heard
It
some
wasn't
people
his
laughing.
biggest. It wasn't his biggest seller. It wasn't his best joke of the night. But there were some people laughing.
It just wasn't right for the forum.
No, it wasn't.
Sometimes you got to read the room. Maybe this joke, if he's like in a kind of comedy club and he's going all in into
Sure.
every single group of people and he's like releasing a joke like this, everybody would probably enjoy it. He'd get a big laugh out of a room like that. Maybe even if he's doing like a stadium thing where it's his own show that he's like talking for an hour, saying the craziest stuff for a whole hour, and in the middle he shoves that joke. Everybody's already in that kind of atmosphere and mood. Maybe they're laughing, but to come for a brief speech and just throw that out there, he didn't really build up to it. It's not like he kind of cooked something up that the joke kind of took everything to another level because he was talking about something. It just kind of, it feels like it's out of left field, which makes it somehow even worse.
Yeah,
But
it was an awkward choice to have him on there. That was an awkward choice for a joke to tell at a political rally. I'm obviously, I mean, he's a Trump supporter. He's a free speech supporter. That's why he was there. But at the same time, it's like, man, you just got to choose your material. Read the room a little bit.
he didn't read the
bit
room.
better.
He didn't read the room. I mean, sometimes you have a person that has a certain style, and then they get invited to an event like this, and they think, okay, how can I work the room in a way that's really right for the atmosphere that's going on there? And I feel like and I know this is going to sound bad because I'm not attacking the guy, but I feel like in a way he was a bit selfish. In the sense of like walking out and he's like, well, I like being this kind of douche and people love it. It's like, yeah, like what you just said, like read the room. It doesn't matter what you usually do. This is a different type of crowd. You're invited to a very specific event. You should really, do something that it would resonate well with this crowd. It's not even like Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes, where he knows that there's a large audience at home that's sitting there and it's going to appreciate his him roasting these kind of Hollywood celebrities. In that case, he's sitting there. They all feel like crappy that he's roasting them, but everybody is at home is having a great time.
Yeah.
But that wasn't one of those situations. He needed to adapt to the atmosphere. I'm not saying he needed to change as a person, but surely a comedian has a lot of different humor you can tell within a 10-minute time frame, and he can choose which jokes he wants. He didn't have to choose that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was all just sort of this bizarre collection of strange choices. And the joke was what it was. I've heard people who were
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end. I don't even care. It's more I'm more looking at this as a business thing, as like business in the sense of I'm in charge of doing an event now. I wouldn't have invited this guy.
yeah.
And if I
Yeah.
did, I'd have a long conversation with him about what kind of speech he's going to give here. Not because I don't like freedom of speech, but because sometimes you gotta understand what's happening in an event. Marla Shandoff, how's it going? Good friend of the channel. Just wanted to shout her out. I see a
Hey
lot of
there,
other great
Marla.
people here. Phantom Monk, Tripping Orc. I haven't seen you in a while. The Racerhead, Midwest Gunner. Thank you for joining us. Dude Bro Seth, Kivo 1961. A lot of good people.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Without how do I tell this story? There was once an event that I was involved in that had something to do with charity. Okay, let's leave it at that. And I was sort of involved in something of the production of this event. And there was a person there that they were like the main person in charge. I was one of the people kind of helping with it. Very long story. At the end of the day, this person told me at some point that somebody would get up and would be reading something, and there was sort of a speech prepared of what this person would be talking about. And I looked at it and I told the person in charge, I said, "This is very sappy." I said, "This person's going to come out and read this. Who's going to take this seriously? This is like such kind of sappy, pulling at your heartstring, like sappy, over the top." I said, really, like, you may want to consider changing this. And the person that's in charge there wasn't their first rodeo, told me, "Listen, you don't understand how things work around here. When all these people that have come together to help a certain cause, and they're here with their wallets and they want to help, and this person that is involved in the cause is going to come out and say these things to them, it's really going to be touching for them. It's going to pull at their heartstring. It's exactly what they're expecting. This is what they want to hear." And I said, "I don't believe it." And you know what happened?
What?
The event happened. The guy came up, read the things that were on the paper that I knew in advance, and I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. The crowd loved it. Every single sappy thing that this person said, they loved it. They ate it up. It was the best thing that ever happened to them. And why am I telling you all of this? Is that sometimes you have a certain crowd with a kind of atmosphere and a certain vibe coming for a certain cause, and you got to be able to know who that crowd is and what they're kind of expecting in an event like this. And whoever planned this event, I feel like it was kind of like me, you know what I mean? Me in that scenario, that somebody's like, "Oh, let's bring Tony Inchlik. If it's great, he's not woke. He tells like all these crazy jokes. Everybody will love it." And unfortunately, there wasn't a person like the one that told me, "Hey, shut up." Like, they didn't have that person, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm wrong. I'm not always
Yeah.
right. Sometimes, I think a certain thing and then it turns out differently than what I thought. Now, I will give you this. A lot of times I'm right. Like my track record of being right is good, but that doesn't mean that there aren't times that I'm wrong. And usually the parts that I'm wrong, the times that I'm wrong, you really kind of feel it.
Yep. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut, though. You got to go with what just your instinct on something. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes you end up maybe not getting the best possible outcome, but
Maybe
sometimes you just gotta.
sometimes you can't win them all, I guess.
Yeah.
But here I think there was a lot at stake. You know what I mean? When I get it wrong, so what does it matter? It's
Yeah.
like I think that considering the stakes here, you can't make mistakes like that. But still saying that sometimes people can make mistakes, I can make mistakes too. So it is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sure whoever scheduled Hinchcliffe for that probably got an earful. after the whole thing was over. But
They're
who knows?
probably stranded in Puerto Rico now. Just kidding. Don't cancel me. I did a Tony Hinchcliffe myself now. Now I'm finished. I don't know a lot about Puerto Rico. I've never been there. I actually would want to be there go there at some point.
Yeah.
And I'll say that I've recently been told by some people that I know that Puerto Rico actually is making some interesting moves in terms of there's a whole lot of like crypto and stuff going on now. And I don't know if this is true, but I heard that they were trying to be a place that like people that are into that, sometimes you have places that are more relaxed in their restrictions or their laws surrounding it. So I was told that like they're actually trying to find ways to embrace that so they could hopefully bring companies or people that are more involved in that.
Yeah.
It was actually, I don't know how to repeat it in a way that sounds smart, but when it was explained to me, it sounded pretty smart. So never underestimate anybody. You know what I mean? You don't know.
Yeah.
People are doing interesting things these days, and some of the things that I was told is actually it sounded like they were making some interesting moves. So you can never underestimate anybody.
Yeah, it's an interesting place. I've never been there, and I've known someone who was from there. And they told me, it's a different place. It's definitely, there's a lot about it that identifies and feels a lot like America in a lot of ways. Obviously, being part of the United States, a territory, it's controlled by the United States. But then there's a lot of local culture and stuff to it as well. There's a lot of money there that has to do with the rum business. There's a lot of issues there because it is so separated from the United States that it can be very difficult to get things there. It's very dependent on a lot of stuff being shipped over there. And so when they do have natural disasters, they've had to deal with several hurricanes in recent years that have done some significant damage there. And it's really hard to get, significant amounts of aid to them quickly because you have to ship it all over the ocean and everything. You can fly in what you can, but when there's damage to the infrastructure on the on the island, flying stuff in can be a problem too. So it sounds, I would like to visit there someday. It sounds like an interesting place. And it sounds like it's got a really vibrant culture there.
It sounds interesting. I
Yeah.
would swear I would go there if I could. I just didn't. I've never had a
Yeah.
moment to do it, but I don't think that it's a bad place. I'm sure that it's
No.
interesting to go there.
No.
If I
Yeah.
get a chance at some point, I would do it. So that's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that Hinchcliffe guy was just trying to tell a joke, and sometimes a joke
Oh yeah, of
misfires.
course.
And it is what it is. But back to what we were talking about. The question is, so first of all, Joe Biden is now at this point just seems like a complete liability. I feel like now they're probably sitting and saying, how do we show less of Biden? How do we just hide him until the elections?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel like we're not going to see this guy say one word until the election.
I wouldn't be surprised to try and hide him away, sedate him, and put him somewhere for a few days while everything works its way out. But I don't know. Well, we'll see. We'll see. They, I think some of them feel like they really do owe Joe for everything that he's done and being the, frankly, being the puppet in the White House for the past couple of years. But
hey, being a puppet ain't bad.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
I speak from experience.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say, Ron Donafero, a friend of the channel, hey, a Price of Reason Live, finished with Halloween, thought I'd pop in and say hi. How's it going, man? Earlier we had this kind of cool stream where we talked about some other stuff. But this is also a good stream, and we're talking about different things here. Never mind. In any case, this is the Night Owl, and of course, we're here on a number of different platforms, but always excited to be on Rumble. Rumble is so important in promoting free speech, so important these days, and we love having that as our home base for the Night Owl. But of course, you can watch us on a bunch of different platforms.
I mean, we can talk about the Quantum Leap if you want. I'm easy.
Well, it's a show from 1989 to 1993, and it's some people. I really like the show. It's a classic show, but
It is. It's an absolute classic. Yeah.
it's a classic. But when it comes to Joe Biden, so they'll probably hide him moving forward. I can't tell, and that's what Vance was saying. I mean, he seemed. I couldn't tell if he was joking or not, but I think that either Joe Biden is at this point kind of confused, or he just isn't happy that he was pushed out, and he's quote unquote accidentally ruining Kamala's campaign. I don't have any other way to explain it, really.
Yep. Yep. It's again, it feels like it's a pattern, right? It's not a coincidence that he keeps going out there and messing up her different uh different appearances by making appearances of his own or saying something right after she says it
Every
or
time
whatever.
I
Like,
see him, he looks much older than the previous
boy.
time I've seen him.
Doesn't he
He
though?
really, really, it's like in the past year, he's aged like 5 years. And
Oh
in
yeah.
that and in
Oh
that
yeah.
time of your life, those 5 years are very significant.
Yeah. Oh, that Phantom Monk wanted to know if you were talking about the new Quantum Leap.
No, the new
I let him
quantum
know. Oh
no
God, no, not
new
about
quantum
that.
leap. New Quantum Leap is a disaster, one of the biggest ones I've seen. And because it's more of a niche show, it's not like a Star Wars or a Star Trek. It's an IP that's more niche. That's why people don't notice what happened with it. To talk about DEI and agenda and propaganda, it has some of the worst I've ever seen. I mean, there's things that happen there that are just bonkers. And just quickly, I want to say that somewhere around the second season, which the first one was already terrible, the second season they had a chance. They had an unlikely renewal because I think the network just didn't have another show. And instead of seizing the opportunity and creating something that maybe fans would actually enjoy watching, they went all in on all that kind of agenda, DEI, ESG, whatever it is. They went all in. And when I say all in, they took this lady who is originally not a lady. What do I?
Yeah, I think we know what you mean. Yeah.
Who was an activist, and they made her like a supervising producer of sorts or something like that. She's like the story producer. I don't remember the title now. And then I saw an interview with her, and there was one episode where basically there's a person who was born a male but now is not a male, but they're a student at school and they want to be on the basketball team with ladies.
Yeah.
And then like people, there's some parents that are concerned, and people are saying, well, this person that's was born a man shouldn't be on the basketball team. And everybody that says that in the episode, like it's explained to you that they're like terrible people.
Yeah.
Like there's no dialogue here. There's no kind of debate. There's no nothing. You are watching this episode and you have to agree 100% that the men and the women have to be on the same team, and that there's no issue whatsoever. And if you think there's an issue, you're an istinophobe. And it's so heavy-handed. And later you see this person that I told you that used to be a man, but now I guess was not a man anymore. That was the supervising producer that also directed that episode and I think wrote it. I mean, how many titles are they going to give this person who had like no credentials? But never mind. You see this person in an interview, and that person was saying something along the lines of, I really wanted to follow in the footsteps of the original show. It used to touch upon all these kind of social issues. It's like, that is not what the original show did. The original show many times showed like nuanced storytelling, nuanced dialogue, nuanced debates, even about like hot topic issues. It was done so cleverly and in such a high quality way that this idiot would be sitting there and saying, "Oh, I'm doing what the original show did." No, you're not. You just hijacked it to push your agenda. It is not the same thing as the original.
Oh yeah, it's the Star Trek Discovery problem, right? Oh, we're Star Trek was always woke. Star
Yeah,
Trek was
they
always diverse and inclusive, and it's like, yeah, it was. It was always diverse. It was always inclusive. It also didn't have this ham-fisted dialogue beating you over the head with all of these absurd ideologies. So it's yeah. Ugh,
Yeah, I mean, I
so
just
bad.
so unacceptable. I
Yeah.
don't like that. I'm trying to see if I can if there was any way I can find this person talking. I should have saved it. But I guess
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, it's yeah, yeah, it's so strange. Uh I s- we could if we're gonna talk about cringe, we could move on and talk about Dragon Age.
yeah, that's another crazy one.
Oh my god. Did you see the clips that are out there? I'm
Terrible,
sure you
terrible.
you follow Grums on X, so I'm sure you saw some of the things that were getting shared. It was oh
Absolutely some
so
terrible
bad.
stuff.
So bad. Yeah, we maybe pull one up here in a minute to show, but looks like we got a Rumble rant here from Kivo 1961. Oh, their price?
Yeah, I'm there. What's up?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like we got a Rumble rant here from Kivo 1961.
Did you see Biden bite 4 children at the Halloween event with Jill dressed like a panda bear today? I saw something that he was biting children. I didn't quite get it. I don't know why he's biting children. I feel like every time every time they just release him to the public, he does the weirdest things. He seems like he's not right anymore.
Yeah,
It even is a bit. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it even is a bit of a concern that he's the president right now.
yeah.
Forget about what happens on like January 20th or whatever it is. I think that even now it's sort of a concern that this guy really seems out of it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna share this. This is too much.
Do it.
Okay. Give me just a second here. Get this window up. Uh, here we go. Um, there's a few videos here. This one, what the hell? What? What is he doing?
I don't know. I don't understand it.
Sticking a baby's foot in his mouth.
It is really weird, man. It's so
What?
strange.
What? There's another one. There's a picture, photo biting.
I don't understand this. It's not a good photo op.
This
Like
other
I don't know
video
what.
here. Someone put music over it.
This is so weird, man. There's something wrong.
Okay, so I'll tell you that I'll say this reminds me so much of we had a friend. As is actually a former colleague of my wife's. He's recently passed away, but he when he was getting older, he was having he had some issues with uh, some like a viral meningitis, and it had affected his memory and it affected his behavior and all sorts of different stuff. And as he was started to get even older, he started like regressing and acting like honest like a kid, like a little toddler, like doing stuff like weird, like suddenly would like break out dancing, like, and he was like a really like sort of stoic guy, at one point, and he would do all these like really childish things. That's what that looks like to me. That's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, he's like acting like a little kid. So now he's sniffing women's hair, he's biting children. What's next?
Crazy. I don't
Oh,
know what to tell you. It's on one hand, it's kind of silly, and I understand the memes and the jokes. On the other hand, this is the president of the United States. That's the
I
part that
know.
I'm a bit more concerned about. But I mean, hopefully, at least
Yeah.
the next few months, they can just
Yeah.
hold down the fort. I don't really know
Yeah.
what to say.
I wonder. I seriously do wonder if Kamala does win, right? Or maybe even if she doesn't. I don't know. that they might try to shuffle him out and just push her into office. So she starts as president right away.
I was thinking that. I mean, somebody was telling me this today that they thought that maybe even if she doesn't win,
Yeah.
they'll still try to shuffle him out and push her in.
Yeah. So then they get the first female president,
The
right?
first female president somehow. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Although to me it would sound so stupid if they do that, but who knows? I mean, at this point, any scenario that you tell me, I would say is at least possible.
What wouldn't they do?
I'm gonna try to share this thing. I don't know, I don't know. I haven't really listened to this in a while, and I don't know if it's the clip I was looking for, but I'm just wondering. The person on the left is the person that was, I think, a man and then wasn't a man anymore.
Mhm.
Worked on the series.
Okay.
So I guess this person is talking about directing like a trans-inclusive Quantum Leap episode or whatever it was. The funny thing is, this is from like GLAAD, and there's 338 views. I mean, I have videos about Quantum Leap that probably have more views than this thing. Like the episode that they made that they're talking about here probably has like a few thousand views at least.
Mhm.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? That this is so low interest. Nobody cares, and let me just see what them say.
We forget that our entertainment is connected to our life in the world.
Yes.
And even if at 10 o'clock at night you want to cuddle up on the couch with a blanket and watch this great episode and laugh and cry, it can open you up to things going on around you and encourage you to take action to help make the world a better place. And I think when people understand what trans kids today are going through, they might have a little more compassion and empathy for not only trans kids, but also their parents and families and teachers and doctors. And they might have the courage to hop on the phone or send an email to a congressperson or a state legislator and demand that trans kids get protection, not discrimination. So
this is just like a tidbit of the kind of mentality of the person that's like playing a key role on the production. How can this show be loyal to Quantum Leap when this is the type of like mentality of the people running it?
Yeah, and I will go on record. I do have great compassion for what they would label as trans kids. Who I don't have compassion for are their parents. They're supposed to be protecting their children from that kind of stuff, and instead, many of them are pushing them into these issues, and it's deeply disturbing. When you look at all of these people in Hollywood that just suddenly have kids who are trans, seems very, very strange that there's so many people that suddenly have these trans kids. Almost like the parents maybe want that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like in Hollywood, the ratio of people, and this actually, I think they brought it up today. JD Vance was talking about it with Joe Rogan, that the percentage of Hollywood people that have kids in that category, it's not proportionate to anything that's happening anywhere, because it's almost like it's sort of a trend. And the thing is that, and this is just my thoughts on it. I can't tell other people what to think, and part of what I like about our show is that we also just kind of share our opinions, and we just kind of shoot the breeze. Maybe sometimes it's a little more politically correct, sometimes a little less. But what I think is that if you're under 18 and you're a child, I don't think I think that you should be over 18 and an adult to make these type of decisions. To come to little kids and start pushing them and saying, "Oh, don't you want to be this? Do you don't you want to be a girl now?" and things like that. It seems very odd. I grew up, growing up, there were a few girls who were kind of tomboys, and later, a few years later, suddenly they change and they, things aren't always the same.
Yeah.
With children, there's a lot of changes all the time. They're not always the same. And the fact that somebody, when they're 10 years old, has a kind of a tomboy spell, it doesn't mean that then they have to be a boy. It could also be that you give them a few years and they go in the completely opposite direction.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very strange for them to take these little indications here and there, and these little things that are just normal developmental things that we all go through. Feeling uncomfortable in your body as a teenager. Guess what? That's just about everyone who's gone through puberty. Your body is changing, things are happening you don't understand, your hormones are raging, things, you're uncomfortable, right? I know that was the case, for me somewhat. I know that was the case for my wife when she was growing up. She's told me, like, I felt weird, right? I felt like a freak with, all these things happening to me that were, as I was changing from being a child into a woman, and it was weird. And yeah, that's normal. Those are not things that we're supposed to be trying to protect kids from. Those are normal experiences. What we should be telling them is, you know what? Yeah, this phase of life is hard, and it's hard for all of us, but you're going to get through this. And on the other side, you're going to feel differently about this. You're going to have a different experience. And going out of their way to say, "Oh, well, your little boy, he's 5 years old, and he said he wanted his hair longer, so he must want to be a girl." That's messed up.
Totally. I agree. And that's it. I mean, I think that also it's not fair that somebody decided that saying that you need to be an adult to make decisions. I mean, you need to be 18 if you want to buy cigarettes. You
Mhm.
have to show that you're
Yeah.
an ID. You have to show that you're 18. You have to, if you're 18 and you want to buy alcohol, you can't even do that. You have to be 21, I think, right?
Yeah, you have to be 18 and show ID to buy cough medicine.
Right. I mean, the fact that some kid would say, hey, like, people would come, are you sure you're not a girl? Are you sure you're not a girl?
Yeah. Oh,
These are big questions. These are big questions. Kids don't know. They don't know 100%.
No, they don't.
You
And
have to let them sort of go through the process of whatever it is. Certainly not young children. I remember a few years ago, I think it was Mario Lopez who said on some kind of podcast, I mean, he said that he thought that children who were 3 years old shouldn't be asked what gender they want to be or something like that.
yeah.
And then people wanted to cancel him. So this guy had to go out and make an apology. I actually think he made a mistake. I don't think you should ever apologize for something like that. He had to apologize for saying that 3-year-olds shouldn't be deciding if they want to change their gender. I mean, this is the dumbest apology probably in the history of apologies.
And here's it's different to say, okay, well, you want to have some longer hair, or you're having some feelings about this or that, or you want to play with different toys or whatever, whatever, it's fine. Plenty of us had phases like that. You know what? I had a little sister. We played with dolls together sometimes. That didn't mean anything, right? It was because I was there with my sister and we were playing. She wanted to play with dolls. I didn't have anything else to do. That didn't make me not male. That didn't mean that I needed to have some sort of a change.
Right.
It was just something that happened. It was a phase. It was a different time in life. Uh, it's so bizarre to imply that that there's these children that are having feelings. It's like I did watch that Joe Rogan interview, or I listened to it mostly. I listened to the talk about this issue some, and one thing they were saying is like, having a young son, he's like, if he comes out today and tells me, "Daddy, I'm a dinosaur," that doesn't mean that I need to take him out and medicalize him and have all sorts of done to to try and turn him into a dinosaur.
Yeah, it's all
very
true.
strange.
It's all true.
Very strange.
And people are still talking about Biden.
Oh yeah. Oh
Biden
yeah.
still-
That was the great Jonathan Conroy. Yes.
The cool name, yeah.
Yes. Oh
Jonathan
boy,
Conroy.
Jonathan. We already got into Biden biting on children. That was just bizarre. Bizarre behavior.
So I thought that just to kind of go over the JD Vance thing, I
Yeah.
watched the interview except for maybe the last 3 minutes or 5 minutes, but I watched basically 97% of the interview. I thought he did pretty well. I thought that the interview went off well, and I am just out of all these candidates, out of the 4 people that we keep talking about, I actually really kind of like the approach of JD Vance. Didn't really know much about him before this whole election cycle. I've heard the name, and I once actually did sort of, I don't know if to say interacted with him on Twitter a number of years ago, but he was talking about something about Star Wars, and I answered him because he didn't like the sequel trilogy. But that's already a good sign. It's already a good sign when you years before
Yeah.
even was even considered for any type of presidential candidate.
Yeah.
He didn't like the sequel trilogy, uh, the Disney sequel trilogy. That's already a guy that earned a few points in my book.
Indeed, yes. It's definitely a man of discernment there, not liking the sequels. But yeah, he had a bunch of really fascinating things to say. They had a really interesting conversation. Sat even longer than Trump did, and
He's
they
very
they
good at
touched
shooting.
they touched on tons of different topics. There was even some things that Rogan brought up that he was like, oh, honestly, I've never heard of that, or I've never really investigated that. Tell me about what you're talking about. Let's, and so, because he was talking, one thing that he's brought up a number of times is the use of psychedelics as a therapeutic for people who have PTSD and depression and stuff. And honestly, I've actually looked into this myself. There's actually a lot of evidence to show that these could be very, very beneficial therapeutic pathways for a lot of people. So it's interesting to hear someone, with a large audience like Joe to talk about that. But he was talking about that with JD, and he was like, I've never even heard of this. Like, what are we talking about? How would, what just, exploring the idea, like what would you do if I were to get in office and I were to, like, what would you think we should do? Should we? And so he was, telling them all sorts of stuff. It was really interesting. There was a great give and take, a back and forth discussion about a lot of different stuff. So yeah, I thought it was a really fascinating interview, and and not even really an interview, just a conversation, which is what Joe likes to call it. So
Yeah, and I think that he came out looking good in this thing. He actually, it seemed like a very casual conversation between two, I don't know if to say regular people, but sometimes it's nice to see people just sit and talking. And, Vance,
absolutely,
he knows how to word his answers, but at the same time, he also doesn't come off as scripted like
hmm
Harris, or
hmm
confused or surprised like Walsh.
yeah,
Uh, I would say that even when it comes to answers, he's more laser focused than Trump. Uh, Trump, I thought, exceeded my expectations on Rogan. I think he actually did quite decently on the show. But Vance really, seems like he could
yeah,
just shoot the breeze forever and be really on point.
yeah,
Answer everything. He's not, there's Trump, I felt in some cases he kind of schmoozed where maybe he wanted to steer away from things. Vance, I feel like, touched upon everything, answered everything,
yeah,
didn't like try to
yeah,
avoid anything. Even in parts he'd say, listen, I know this, I know that. He has a very kind of direct approach. And
mhm.
I can't say that I don't I think it's not a bad approach, that kind of
Yeah.
direct approach.
Yeah, and well, I know, historically, and in pretty much every different research that's been done, number two on the ticket doesn't really change anybody's mind, in general. Uh, Generally, all they can do is take away from your ticket, somewhat, and I see that. I would say that Vance is doing much better for the top of his ticket than Waltz is doing for the top of his ticket. Just put it that way.
I agree. I think that Vance is like exceeding expectations. Like nobody thought of anything, and he just every time you see him, every time you see him in an interview, I think he's doing quite well. So, in that sense, there was something that Trump said in his interview with Rogan, that he said, people didn't know why I chose Vance, but now that you've seen him, it's pretty good, right?" Like, Trump was basically saying that, even
Mhm.
though it didn't seem like a popular choice to ask Vance to be his vice president, that it ended up being that Vance is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
and And I kind of agree. I mean, you'd think that in that situation with Trump, he may have gone for something that's more kind of, I don't know if to say pandering, but something that maybe appeals to a wider audience or somebody that's very different than him. Vance is different in the sense that he's very kind of focused and has a much different style. But at the same time, it's not like he brings some completely other demographic to the table.
Yeah, yeah. It's, yeah. Like I said, I've been really impressed with him, and I think the more he's been out there, the more confident he's getting, and the better he is at delivering that message. I think he just, in the time that he's been doing this for the last 6 months or so, he's just gotten better and better on the trail as a representative for Trump's ticket. So honestly, I'm interested to see more of him and where his career is going to go from here. Because whether they win or lose, I think he's probably got a big future in the Republican Party. So yeah,
I tend to think that too, but who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it seems like.
Yep. I mean, there's no telling, but yeah, it was a really really fascinating conversation. They touched on a lot of different things. It's interesting that Rogan seems to be very fascinated by the whole, like, how did your life change, like when this kind of thing happened. He was asking similar questions of Trump, right? Like, how did things change for you, like, and you're walking in the White House. And so for him, it's like, how did things change for you when you got the call, right? And it was the stories he was telling about how he got picked for the ticket, and how he met with Trump, and was actually potentially he was going to be with him. There was a possibility he might be with him at the rally, where he had that attempt on his life, where that might have been the rally where he was going to announce, and then they changed their minds and was like, no, we're not going to do that. We'll wait and do it. Let's make sure we do it right, whatever, instead of doing it on a whim. And so he ended up not being there, and then he was going home, and like while he was on his way home, or just after he got home, he found out about what was happening. So, yeah,
Yeah, that was
it was a
crazy,
really
man.
interesting story.
It was very interesting.
Yeah. I think I think we can probably look forward to seeing more from him in the future. Like I said, whether or not they win the White House this time around. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that if he plays his cards right, I think that he's at least introduced himself to people, and
Mhm.
maybe down the road that'll be.
Yeah, he's definitely raised his profile, and a lot of people have been really, really impressed with how he's acquitted himself out there on the campaign trail. So
I understand. I guess let's talk a little bit about this Dragon Age game that
oh
came
my
out today.
goodness,
Maybe
yes.
you can explain to some people what a disaster. If you have some of these clips and you want to share them.
Yeah. So, there's been a number of things that have happened with Dragon Age so far. Early on, there were some previews of the game, and there were some videos that were being shared of some of the previews, and they were featuring various different things. Oh, look at, you can do this character creator. And that's when we found out that the character creator, had some interesting features, being able to add top surgery scars, for one. Very interesting choices. A lot of people were interested in how you could create characters with certain dimensions, let's say breast size, uh, and not create characters with larger breast sizes. It was very, very limited as to what it would do there. The same with the size of your rump for your character. You're not able to add a big butt. So there's definitely some people felt like they weren't being represented there, but there were a lot of indications early on that there were going to be some problems with this game. Not just that thing with the character creator. Early on, they were talking about the different characters that can accompany you in the game, the different companion characters that you have. In the past, with the Dragon Age games, you could potentially have romances with certain characters. And that was all based on their traits and who they were. And yes, there were opportunities for homosexual romances. There were opportunities for heterosexual romances. You didn't have to romance anybody at all. But early on, they were talking about this, saying, oh, there's going to be all of these different characters, and every one of them is going to be pansexual. They're all going to be available to you no matter what. Whatever character you pick, however you decide to set up your character, and whatever, they're all going to be. You have to have the right approach for each one of them, or whatever. You have to have the right attitudes and handle yourself right to romance them. But all of the characters potentially would be romantic, for a romantic interest for you. They would all be pansexual. And then they implied that if you didn't romance characters in the game, they would just romance each other because they have needs. So it's just so bizarre, all of this stuff that they started off trying to sell in this game for all of these wild different things that were going on. So more recently, there's been some other things that have been coming out as gameplay has become available. One of the first things that was noticed was that a lot of some of the people who got previews, those who were more critical of the game, did not get early access to the game. The only people who were getting their early access codes were those that were more approving of some of the changes that they made in the game. And as it's gotten closer to release, more and more stuff has come out about this. One thing in particular that's come out, there's been a number of issues where they've been presenting some of the characters. First of all, one of the characters who is somebody who lives outside of the norms for their society anyway, presents themselves as being literally in a fantasy game, says, "Hi, I'm non-binary and I use the pronouns they, them."
I saw that. Do you have like some screenshots? There was some
Oh my
cringe stuff I saw online. You should share
Well,
it.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what I can find. I have there's one clip in particular that I was looking at here, but let me see if I can find another one. Oh, come on. There's one clip in particular that I was looking at that had some basically just a lecture, a gender studies lecture that's given to you in the game that is just insanely cringe, all about how what you're supposed to do if you get somebody's pronouns wrong. Did you see this one?
Oh, they're having a conversation, and she's like, "You have to apologize," and all this weird
Oh,
crap.
it's bizarre. Here, this one I already have pulled up and I can share. It is appalling, and apparently, the BioWare people are trying to get this taken down because they don't want people to see this, because this would happen several hours into the game, and what a lot of people have guessed is that you're not going to hit this really sort of messed up stuff until you're a couple hours in, which is going to be too late for you to return the game on Steam. You will have put too many hours into it to return it. And so there's some people guessing this might even be calculated. So let me try to get this pulled up here. Jeez.
So it's such cringe.
Just awful. Well, and then also at the same time, like, if they're like, oh, well, they make it all about themselves. That's literally what she just did. She made it all about her and this apology and blew it like completely out of proportion. Oh, well, if you get someone's pronouns wrong, you got to apologize. You better apologize, right? Damn it, because just saying an apology is not good enough. You need to get down and sweat a little so you can prove to people that you really meant it. That you, oh. Jeez. Just so awful. Yeah, so they're it says EA and BioWare are yanking this clip off the internet as fast as it can be posted. It's yeah, so it's been shared a number of places, and they were also talking about, you can see here, Grums has been pushing this, 2 years without buying any of these games, and it appears that numbers wise, it might be working. These companies are losing money, and they're losing money off of these games that have this disastrous ideological stuff shoved into it. So that's a good thing. We're glad to see games like this fail. Right now, the sales for this game are looking pretty dreadful. Not as bad as some people might have thought. It looks like maybe they might have sold, at least on Steam, they're 100,000 or so. We're not sure exactly what that would be on other platforms. Those numbers don't show up immediately, but maybe similar to that, or a little bit less. And that means they're not really selling a lot of this title. It's a lot more than some of the other games, like say a Dustborn, where they probably only sold a few hundred copies. But of course, this is a AAA game, and it's part of a long running series of games. And so there's probably there are a lot of people who might be interested in this who have not been paying attention to some of the dialogue around it. And I think we're going to start to see there's some other weirdness going on in some other places. Apparently, there's a few places that are not allowing for user reviews to be posted and shared yet, which is kind of odd since the game is out now. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I already know I have no interest in this game at all. The first couple of games I really enjoyed. The third one, Inquisition, I did not love, but it was pretty good. But yeah, I have no interest in this one whatsoever. BioWare as a company is in a terrible place right now, and I have no expectation that they're going to be able to pull this out, that they're going to be able to make any other titles that are going to be any good. There have been some other things that have been going on in the gaming industry. There was one thing I wanted to pull up. This was something got reported just today. This is another article from that Park Place. But it's really, really kind of interesting because there's been a lot of people who are saying that we're already starting to see the pivot. We've already perhaps seen this peak woke in video games, and that a lot of studios are perhaps pivoting rather quickly to try and change titles that they have coming out in the next year or two. And so this was kind of an interesting thing to see. It doesn't guarantee anything in particular, but it is interesting. Just a second, I get this to share. Marvel's Wolverine, which of course would be from the same studio, Insomniac. This is the same studio that created Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Marvel Spider-Man 2 had a lot of, again, I hate to use the word woke, ideological garbage in it, right? There was a mission where essentially you were forced to help this guy start dating his gay crush. Like, you had no choice, or proposed marriage, I think it was actually. You had no choice but to be a part of that. It was a mission in the game that you needed to complete. And there was another bizarro mission where you had to play as a deaf character in the game. And the mission was dull, and it made no sense, and it felt tacked on. It was very strange. And so this is really interesting to see that this is going on, because a lot of people know that Sweet Baby Inc., the original company that was responsible for bringing attention to a lot of this stuff, was involved with Marvel Spider-Man 2, and it was involved with Insomniac, and it was learned that they were also likely involved with Marvel's Wolverine. So a bunch of people had just written Wolverine off, saying, nope, not interested, not going to be part of it. Well, the creative director has now left Marvel's Wolverine, and it is not just the creative director that has left. Brian Horton says, he's no longer part of the project. He's moved on because of creative differences. as some creative decisions that have been made around the game that he no longer wants to be a part of it. So he's now moved on and he's going to be part of some other projects. But this particular change, this creative director leaving, is not the only thing that has happened at Insomniac and involving this game. Recently, Mary Kinney, who was a big defender, who had connections with Sweet Baby Inc. and was out there on social media defending Sweet Baby Inc. and saying, that we needed, one of her missions was to make sure we had more, Alphabet Mafia representation in our games, right? We need to have that out there, and that's her mission to make sure that happens. And being out there defending Sweet Baby Inc., having connections with Sweet Baby Inc., she has also left Insomniac, is no longer contributing to Marvel's Wolverine. And so a lot of people, and I myself, would speculate that what is this change in this creative direction that they're making? We know that Sony has been bitten several times now by this ideological, this mind virus that has caused them significant damage. We've talked about already Concord, right? Concord was a massive loss for them. They shut down the studio earlier this week. It's gone, and Concord has been, as they said, sunsetted. It is toast. It is not coming back. It's gone, and they've, not only the cost of them buying the studio, but they've had to just cash out, any of the $400 million they spent on this game, gone. They also were hurt by the sales of the previous game from Insomniac, Marvel Spider-Man 2. As we know, Marvel Spider-Man 2 was not a huge seller for them. They because of the weak sales of Marvel Spider-Man 2, they backed out of any additional DLC that they had planned. They weren't going to do anything with that. And so they ditched all of that. They committed to including some other things like photo modes and some new costumes and stuff. But it sold around 11 million units, which, yes, that's pretty good sales. But for a top tier AAA game that should be selling to everyone with a console, that's not great number.
Right. I mean, it's not the kind of numbers you really are expecting here.
No, not for a top tier title like this. And so a lot of people are real curious. They're making these changes, and there's these people leaving Insomniac. They're making some changes in the creative direction of the game. Is it possible that Sony has come down and said, drop this BS from your game, get it out? We don't want it. We're not going to pay for it. And this needs to stop because it's hurting our bottom line. Who knows? I would love to find out that's what's happening, that Sony is out there really saying, no, we've tried this. We've had multiple failures now. This is not working. This is not selling to our core demographic. Get this crap out of our game. Is that the case? I don't know. But these are definitely some curious departures at Insomniac having to do with their next title that was rumored to be connected to Sweet Baby Inc. And of course, we know that Mary Kinney was connected with Sweet Baby Inc. and had a bunch of stuff that she had said, about injecting these types of ideological things into games was one of her missions, right? So she's gone. The creative director's leaving because of creative differences or whatever. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's interesting, I guess, is what I'll say, to see those changes happening. Doesn't mean that the Sweet Baby Inc. Influence is going to be completely gone, but maybe they're turning a corner here. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out. But there's another thing that we were going to touch upon is that I saw something that Sony was suing CBS. Did you see this?
Oh yes, yeah, I was reading about that earlier today. That was very interesting. Uh,
Let's see if I
it
can
was a
share.
Yeah, if you've got something to share, it has to do with a couple of their game shows, right?
Yeah, out of
But
all the
yeah,
stuff they could sue them for, they're suing them for like
yeah,
Wheel of Fortune.
yeah. So yeah, Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, of course, some big time game shows. If you don't actually know the background behind these are both so these are both Sony properties. Botox ads,
How
nice.
did we get to Botox?
I don't know.
Variety. I guess the type of people that read
There you go.
Variety need to get Botox
There you
immediately.
go. Yeah. Well, if you need it, it's there. You can go. You can get get your Botox cosmetic. Uh, but yeah, so Sony has the rights to, and they produce both Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. So these are two of the most popular game shows that have been around for decades, and CBS serves as their distributor. And so they're having some disagreements here over the actions that CBS has been taking. Of course, we know CBS has been embroiled in a bunch of issues recently, financial issues primarily, right? They've been having a lot of issues with their studios, losing a lot of money. And so Sony is essentially saying CBS has been mishandling their property. Sorry,
I
I
see.
need a drink.
But how are they handling their properties though? What do they feel that they're not doing?
So CBS is in charge of distribution, and that's not just here in the US, but it's in foreign markets as well. And Sony is essentially alleging that CBS has been favoring its own productions at the cost of the distribution for Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, doing things like packaging things together so that let's see. I'm trying to remember exactly what some of the shows were that they were talking about. Go and look at this article myself because I was looking at this earlier. Oh, come on. Yeah, so there's some other shows that CBS owns, significantly less popular shows like The Hot Bench. Do you even know what that is? I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
The Hot Bench. The Drew Barrymore show, which I thought she got canceled because she said the wrong thing about somebody at one point. But I guess that show's still going. But they're alleging essentially that they have been trying to do their best to sell their own things, distribute their own stuff, and connecting it to the sales of Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy and stuff. So essentially, limiting where they're actually distributing Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, limiting the money they could be making. And they're also doing stuff like when they have multiple different affiliates in a market, they're putting their shows on the bigger, more popular affiliate, and then putting Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy on the less popular of them, right? And so there's all sorts of things that they're alleging here, but essentially what they're saying is that CBS has a responsibility as a distributor to get the best possible deal that they can for Sony in selling these shows to different markets. And they are doing all sorts of things that are essentially devaluing this property for Sony, and they're not getting paid the revenues from syndication that they should get. And so it's really interesting. You wouldn't imagine like Sony suing CBS, whatever. I mean, they're essentially saying, "Hey, we entrusted you with these two properties that have been really valuable to us. These two game shows that are some of the most popular game shows in the world." And of course, I don't know who's the new host of Wheel of Fortune. Is that Seacrest now?
I guess it's
I,
Seacrest.
I have
Anytime,
not. I haven't watched it since Sajak left.
I mean, it's funny. Seacrest is always the guy they bring in when somebody is like retired or passed away. I know that's a terrible thing to say. Dick Clark passes away. Ryan Seacrest, New
Seacrest.
Year's Eve. Yeah. Wheel of Fortune, Pat Sajak retires. Ryan Seacrest. There was a time that Regis, I think, quit and then or retired, and then he was there, but I guess he didn't get along with Kelly or something. Who knows?
Yeah, something. Who knows?
But anytime
She
there's an
thought he was
issue, they
prettier
reel
than
him in.
him. Yeah.
What'd you say?
I said she thought he was prettier than her. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know.
Could be any number of things. But yeah, no, go ahead.
I'm trying to think to myself, that guy always, I don't know, I can't argue that he's made a good business for himself, and he's, obviously he's a good businessman and good schmoozer and politician. He always ends up in the right place, making all the money that he wants to make, and I can't take that away from Ryan Seacrest. At the same time, I've never really seen anything special about him, but what can I say? He found a certain niche that he fills, and he collects all the money, and I can't hate him for it. Just not like a huge fan or anything.
Yeah, I've
Pat Sajak, I thought was good for it, and there is something
Sure.
that you have to respect, that a guy does something for like 70 million years. You kind of respect it at the end. I mean, he is Wheel of Fortune. You like that show, you don't like that show. He's standing around there. The Vanna is spinning the letters. That's Wheel of Fortune. Ryan Seacrest, it feels like a downgrade.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never really gotten the appeal of Ryan Seacrest.
No, I haven't either. I mean, even Wheel of Fortune, it's not like a show that I'd watch all the time. But throughout my life, there have been a moment, or I have watched it before, and it's one of those things. It's like, you may not eat at McDonald's regularly, but once in a blue moon, you may eat there because it's sort of like I don't know. I don't even know why you would eat there, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so Wheel of Fortune is that kind of comfort food that, once in a while, I don't know if it's good, but once in a while you kind of, oh, it's Wheel of Fortune. And you kind of look at it and you see, and you kind of think to yourself, wow, Pat Sajak is still here with those wheels. It kind of comforts you that he's still there. So once he's not there and you see that it's Ryan Seacrest, you know that you're getting older, that now it's not him anymore. It's Ryan Seacrest. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
Same with Dick Clark's like New Year's. It's like, oh, it's Dick Clark. And then like you see him and you're like, I'm getting older. Like everywhere you see him is like a reminder that you're getting older. I guess maybe that's why I'm not a fan of his.
Yeah. For a long time, I could not look at Pat Sajak without thinking about, did you ever see the Pat Sajak show?
Oh, I did actually see it, and it was such a flop. I don't know why they thought he would be good with his own talk show. It was such a miscalculation.
Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. And then of course they followed it up, but it was the Chevy Chase show that happened after that. That was another just disastrous talk show. It's like, why did you think this was going to work? But yeah, oh man, for a long time it was like, oh yeah, he had that really bad talk show for a while. But yeah, I loved Pat Sajak. He was a good guy. He was always fun on that show hosting Wheel of Fortune. I didn't really watch. I never really watched game shows all that much, but my mother loves watching them. Her parents were always huge into game shows. They all still used to watch those. So, yeah, many days we sat around with our grandparents at their house and when we were visiting, and we'd sit around and watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. So. Yeah, I always liked.
Somebody wrote here, Bush Mufana wrote, Ken Jennings was always the pick for host after Alex died, but they kept pushing mine because reasons. I haven't watched Jeopardy in a really long time. If Alex was around, maybe just like with a Wheel of Fortune, maybe on occasion I would watch it, like once in a blue moon. Once he's not there, like I wasn't even curious to see. I heard at the time they wanted this person, they wanted that person, and just I lost interest. But as far as Ken Jennings or Mayim Bialik, I'll say this about Mayim Bialik. At least she has a few degrees. She's not like,
Mhm.
even though she's an actress and you think of her as that, like, Blossom, and then on Big Bang Theory, or like Amy Farrah Fowler or whatever it is. But in reality, she actually has like a number of degrees, and she's considered not dumb. So it's not that she's not worthy of maybe, hosting or not hosting. Honestly, I couldn't really even compare Ken Jennings to her because I didn't watch either of them. I don't care about either of them. Uh, Ken Jennings, why did people think that he was the one that should have? What ended up happening? I'm not even sure. Do you know anything? Like
Well, I know. I mean, Ken Jennings, he was the one that won. How was it? It was like 70 some odd consecutive wins on the show. So he gained a big following on Jeopardy just because he was like this all-time winner. He had been
probably.
there and played the game so well.
I don't know specifically what reasons Bush McFadden is referring to, but I would say that probably if it was not in our day and age, the fact that he was that popular, Ken Jennings, I think that they probably could have just said, like, here you go, you can do it, you've proven yourself. Maybe him being like a white male wasn't exactly the thing that they were looking for. And
Yeah.
I assume that they wanted to show that there's also a woman or whatever it is. But from what I recall, didn't they tell her that, like, after a bit that they tried them both out, they just told her to take a hike or something, I think.
Well, I think so what I think had happened, if I remember, I had read something about this at one point, that when there were the strikes in Hollywood in 2003, that she joined them on the picket line and refused. She was not going to host the show at that time. So they brought Jennings back to host the show. And so he finished out that season. He finished out like 2/3 of the season that was left or something. And then
Why was she the host prior to him being the host?
Yes. Yeah.
They
had
settled
they
on.
had kind of gone back and forth, and then it eventually had kind of settled on her being the host for a while. And
I
she was
see.
going to host that whole season, but then like I said, she left because of the strikes, and they brought Jennings back because she wasn't available, and he's not an actor, so he not crossing picket lines to show up as a game show host when you're not an actor. So he came back, and I think he finished out the rest of that season. And from my understanding, the Bush was saying the host position wasn't part of SAG-AFTRA. You're right, it wasn't, but that's why Mayim Bialik left, because she wanted to be on the picket line with
Well, that was pretty dumb. That was
with
pretty dumb of
whatever.
her.
So I don't know. She wanted
I
something
was saying that
happened.
she's smart, and maybe she is, maybe she has degrees, but I think that when you get a gig like this, if you want to hold on to it, you better stay. Being a host on this show is not the same
Okay.
as being on Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was a very kind of diva move of, like, I'm also an actress. It's like, you
Yeah.
get a gig like this, there's people that are in this gig like later for decades. You either take the gig with open arms and you embrace what you've been given, or maybe it's not for you. So if she lost it was kind of her own doing, from what I understand.
Yeah, I think what it looks like what Bush is saying in the chat is that maybe it wasn't a SAG-AFTRA thing, it was a Writers Guild thing, perhaps. So
In any
but
case,
anyway,
she shouldn't have gone to any of those picket lines. I think that she needed to stick with the hosting and do her job, because that show had nothing to do with those strikes, really. And if she made it about that, then she made a mistake. And it's the type of mistake that you pay for. I mean, I assume she's not poor. She was on Big Bang Theory. I'm sure she's made some money. Probably if she does nothing from till now until like the end of her life, I'm sure she'll be fine. But still, if you want to be in the mix and you have a role like that, a lot of people really want to be the host of Jeopardy and want that kind of longevity and long-term position or role. And maybe at the end, this Ken Jennings guy, he was the guy that was the right fit anyways. So whatever needed to happen
yeah.
happened.
Well, in fact, I've got a quote here. There was a reporter who said that many Jeopardy staff members came to believe that Jennings had become the technically superior host according to sources close to production who said that Jennings' improvement, that's when he came back to the show to finish out that season when Bialik left, that his improvement was a key factor in the end of her as being the host. Like they after he came back, like they saw like huge improvements and really liked how he was interacting with people, and then technically he was doing a much better job on the set. And so they just decided, well, you know what, we're just going to stick with Ken.
You know what? I also think that when I think about it now, she came in as an actress. Ken Jennings came in as a guy who loves Jeopardy.
Yeah.
She came in as a person who was on the Big Bang Theory and just wants, maybe this other gig here that wasn't her main focus anyways. And you could see that the second she went on those strikes. So basically, she wasn't the right fit. If I had to guess, I think that if this was happening in 2012, this was happening in 2014, I think that they would have just gone with like a Ken Jennings type. It's just the problem is that it happened exactly in the height of all this, what I consider the woke era, whatever you want to call it, that it's like, what, we're going to let some some male in there do the thing. So I think that that's why they kind of wanted the woman. That's my interpretation. I could be wrong. I feel like somebody sat there and like, we've had a man for 7 years. Now enough for the patriarchy. Let's bring a woman. So some dumb thing like that was said in some boardroom. And then initially they tried to let both of them do it 1 week this, 1 week that. I don't know what. And you know what? At the end of the day, I think that whatever needed to happen happened. She treats herself more like this kind of diva actress. I don't really know her, but that's what it seems like. He, on the other hand, this is what he wanted to do. And the fact that maybe they gave him another shot when she stepped away, he really came to prove himself. Then at the end, it played out the way I guess it should have, I guess.
Yeah.
Alex Trebek was still the best, though.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people, I guess, Trebek kind of saw Jennings as his successor. He was kind of who was chosen essentially for that role. In fact, there was even before Jennings recorded his first episode, Trebek's widow came up and gave him a pair of Trebek's cufflinks, like sort of like anointing him essentially for that role. But apparently there was also, it wasn't just, hey, we want a woman to do this instead. There were also some controversial tweets. There were some other things that happened on social media that made some of the executives a little nervous. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the whole thing that happened with Bean Dad on Twitter?
Remind me.
So there's a podcast guy named John Roderick who made some Twitter posts about basically telling his 9-year-old daughter she wasn't going to eat until she learned how to open a can of beans. Like if she's hungry, you eat the beans, use the manual can opener and learn how to open it, whatever. And there was a huge blow up on Twitter, people accusing him of child abuse and all sorts of stuff. It was mostly a joke, right? But of course, it was taken completely out of context. And there was this whole thing that happened. And they started calling him Bean Dad and all this stuff, saying he was cruel and abusive and all sorts of stuff to his kid. And anyway, Jennings had some connections with Roderick and made some comments that had to do with him, defended Roderick, saying, he was a loving dad and, the people were blowing us out of proportion and stuff. And so since he went to his defense, of course, he got attacked too. And so there was some stuff that was going on.
Nonsense like that. People are so stupid. I think that they should have just given it to him to begin with. I think that Mayim Bialik was more like stunt casting, more like, hey, let's show we have a woman here, whatever it is. Totally unnecessary. And but like I said, at the end, it caused maybe this Ken Jennings guy to come back and really step up his game.
Yeah.
Maybe whatever needed to happen happened, and she understood that she is a diva actress and shouldn't be doing this thing anyways.
Yep. Well, these shows, back to the story. It's really interesting. You don't typically see businesses suing each other like this, especially when they've been business partners for I don't remember how long it's been that CBS has been distributing for them, but obviously CBS has been having a lot of financial problems recently, and Sony is basically saying that not only have they sort of fallen down on their job as actually, doing a good job distributing this and getting the best possible money for it, they've been packaging it together with other less desirable stuff that they have, and that's been lowering the value that they've been getting from this. And even then, Sony says they're not getting the portion of the receipts that they're supposed to be getting, that CBS is not paying them what they're owed for all of the rights to distribute this show. And so I think this is going to go on for a while. It sounds like Sony believes that there's some significant money here that they are owed. They have not been paid, on top of sort of falling down on their job as far as distributing this and getting the best money they can for it in syndication. So
It's
I don't
interesting
know.
because they feel that until 2022, CBS had a dedicated marketing team for Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. But when CBS merged with Viacom to form Paramount Global, sweeping layoffs resulted. The marketing task was reassigned to CBS marketing staffers who were already working on CBS network shows. So that's interesting. It also comes back to all this trouble with Paramount and all their money troubles. So somehow, I guess the CBS people thought they could somehow fudge it, and maybe Sony just aren't having it.
Yeah, and of course CBS is defending it. They're saying that Sony is essentially trying to find a way to get out of the agreement that has been made with their business. That they're not happy with the agreement that they've had for, I guess, 40 years or so now. And since that agreement was signed so long ago, they're trying to get out of it so that they can maybe get the distribution rights back for themselves or whatever.
That is a possibility, but they wouldn't do all of this if they didn't think they had a case. So, if CBS are serious about their role here, then they shouldn't give them ammo to sue them.
Yeah. Of course, CBS says, as you can kind of see there, our contract is clear. We hold the distribution rights to these series in perpetuity. And we strongly refute any claims by Sony that we did not use our best efforts in distributing the program. So, yeah, I think this is probably one that is going to go to court, and we're gonna see where this goes.
Going to be interesting,
And,
yeah, because
yeah.
that's probably what it says in the contract, that they have to use their best efforts to distribute it. And Sony is claiming that they're not doing their best efforts, that they're basically half-assing it. And the question is, if they can convince a jury, a judge, whatever, that CBS really aren't taking it as seriously as they should be taking it, or it's just not going to work. But it's interesting. It's certainly interesting to see how it'll play out.
Yep. We'll just have to wait and see. That will be an interesting court case. I'm sure that seems like one that's very likely to go all the way to court. If maybe there would be some sort of settlement that might happen, but it's doubtful that if Sony really does have the receipts they claim to have, it's doubtful that would be something that they would be thrown out before it actually went to trial. So,
and I guess we've wrapped up our key stories here. I just want to go over and say hi to people that joined us today: Eraserhead, Kivo 1961, Midwest Gunner, Dude Bro Seth 420. I think I've said some of these before. Eraserhead, Phantom Monk, Tripping Orc, Superior Nav, Marlo Sharondoff, Caleb Levine, Ron Donafero. It's nice to see him here. SWD40, Phantom Monk, I think I said. The Dad Abides, Kivo 1961. Thank you for the Rumble rant. Eraserhead, thank you. Tripping Orc, I think I said. Keely Chow, how's it going? Just another red shirt. Didn't notice he was here. Nice to see you, man. Jonathan Conroy, the man with a distinguished name. Adam Gray. Empress NM, I think I've said. Cosgrove. Jonathan Connor, I think I said Stephen Mack. DJ Play Nice. Wee. Tim Hayes. Spear Nav, I think I said. Boosh McFadden. Boosh McFadden woke up when we talked about Jeopardy. Tim Hayes. The Peter Venkman fan site. Just going through the list. Hope I didn't forget anybody. As always, if I forgot, obviously not on purpose. Thank you all for coming out and hanging out with us. And I guess before we go, obviously, if you're on X or on Rumble or whatever other platforms, YouTube, you should subscribe to Professor R2. Professor, you can drop your links in whatever it is chat that you want. In addition to that, if you're watching this stream, wherever you're watching it, whatever platform you're watching it in, and if you enjoy what we do here, make sure to like the stream. Make sure to, if you're not already subscribed to the channel or following the channel, you should do that. I know on Rumble, we sometimes get people that are watching it, but then they don't, they're not always subscribed. You should definitely, sign up for Rumble. Even if you're just watching it and you're not signed up yet, you should sign up. And you should also follow us so you can just stay in the loop. And same with any other platform. Please make sure you're subscribed or following us or whatever. And it's been a pleasure as always. Always fun to hang out with you all. And you all have a great night.
Yeah. Down with democracy. No, not that. Not that.
That was so cringe.
Have a great night.